And we are at 11:30. Welcome to the sneak preview of the 7th Annual Project Management Symposium. It's hosted by the University of Texas at Dallas in conjunction with the PMI Dallas Chapter and PM World Journal. This year, the symposium is being held August 15th to 16th at the University of Texas at Dallas in Richardson. To give you all some quick facts about the symposium, this is a two-day event. We have between 45 and 50 breakout sessions in addition to some panel-led sessions and 4 keynote speakers. We expect about 350 attendees, and the symposium includes breakfast, lunch, and reception on day 1 and a breakfast and lunch on day 2. This event is one of the best events that you can attend in North America as far as a project management-focused symposium goes. Last year, when I was attending the PMI Global Congress event up in Vancouver, I was struck once again at the wonderful quality of that event and the speakers there. But when I compare them to the UTD Dallas Project Management Symposium that we've been holding every year, the quality is every bit as good in terms of the speakers and the sessions. This is an event that focuses just on project management, and all of the sessions that are presented, the papers that are written in advance of this event, are all focused on new thinking, new research, latest trends, usable pieces of information, tools, and techniques that project managers can take home and put to use the very next day on their projects. This is an excellent opportunity for project managers to just get focused on project management concepts, topics, and techniques for these 2 days. I have been part of the board that's been organizing and putting this event on for the last 3. This will be my 3rd symposium to be working as a member of the board that organizes it. I was actually one of the speakers at the very first symposium 7 years ago, and have spoken at several since then. Have worked as a volunteer at it previous to stepping into the board position. And I can tell you that this is an event that absolutely gets better every single year. We focus very strongly on lessons learned and on attendee feedback. And for those of you who have been attending it, you know that this is really a great event, a great session. And our purpose today is to get the word out a little bit more and give people a sneak preview at some of the neat, interesting sessions, just a few of them that we've pulled together that you'll be able to attend and participate in on the day of the symposium. Our theme for this year's Project Management Symposium is all about optimizing value to stakeholders. Now, this is in line with and in support of the new PMBOK, the new project management body of knowledge focus on stakeholders. So we wanted to bring that out at this meeting. And any topics related to roles and responsibilities of stakeholders, setting and managing stakeholder expectations, communications with stakeholders, the whole engagement process with stakeholders, and certainly lessons learned with dealing with stakeholders are topics that are going to be presented at the session, in addition to many, many more. Our theme is about stakeholders and how that relates to the project management discipline, but we also have other topics that are going to be discussed. And certainly our keynote speakers will be talking about some different topics related to project management, some of them weaving in the stakeholder theme, certainly. Our first speaker today, Jean-Ann Kalanick, is going to give us some information about her presentation. It's titled Running with the Big Dogs, What a Rottweiler, Pit Bull, and Cane Corso Taught Her About Project Management. Jean-Ann, are you there? Can you jump in? And Jean-Ann, go ahead and give us a little bit of the background on yourself. Give us some of your credentials, and then tell us a little bit about your session.
Great. Thank you, Susan. My name is Jean-Ann Kalanick, and I am thrilled. This is my first opportunity to make this presentation, and I am currently on the board of PMI Dallas Chapter. I'm Vice President of Operations and Support. I have my MBA from UT Dallas in marketing, and I'm also a PMP and a certified Scrum Master. So that's my background, currently working as a project manager in healthcare with Dell Services here in Dallas area. My topic, running with the big dogs, came out of an experience I had from volunteering with rescue dogs. And I found a real parallel when I had a brief training session, introduction to the dogs, handed a leash, pointed to kennels, and said, go to it. It was very much parallel, I found, to starting a new project with new clients. Being introduced, short transition, some tools and techniques to use, and then you're on your own of how to work with the people. And so as I worked more with these dogs, and they were big dogs, and I use the term bully breeds just to own that term. I don't agree with lumping in dogs based on their breed, predicting how they'll act. And I saw a parallel with that of working with the stakeholders, making assumptions of how they would act. So in my talk, I'll be walking us through 10 items that I identified where I learned a lesson from these Rottweilers, Pit Bulls. And if you don't know what a Cane Corso is, think large Mastiff. That is an Italian Mastiff background going into war with Roman soldiers. Huge dog. And so 3 points for just this quick session is I thought about the preparation, being prepared to put a leash, go into a cage, put a leash on an unfamiliar dog who could be potentially dangerous. There was a good lesson, and the first lesson I learned is you have to be prepared, and whatever that means, preparing your energy, really gauging what your concerns are and doing something about them. Because unlike the world we live in with people where you can fake it and act like you're confident, I realized that with dogs, they can literally smell the fear. So address it, be prepared before you work with people. I found that was a good lesson that I could take into my stakeholders. The second is consistency. Having standards, a consistent way of approaching a dog and working with them, a pattern of dealing with it, really brings calmness to the situation. And again, my parallel goes back to stakeholders and using standard reports, standard meetings, forms and processes. Bringing that consistency really builds confidence. My third point for this session is awareness. When you've got a dog on a leash, you're watching for a lot of things. The woman in the picture, I think, is on the phone and her dog's running away from her. So you really have to be aware of what's going on with yourself, with the dog, with your environment. And I found that to be absolutely true when I'm dealing with my stakeholders and particularly a project owner. Be aware, looking around, seeing what's happening in the changes and interpreting how they may impact you. People call it watching out for squirrels, and in the dog world, you are literally watching out for squirrels because they can cause quite a level of excitement. I have many other points that I'll be making in my presentation, but that is just a high-level overview of what I found in a fun way of dealing with the big dogs. And if I literally was going to run with the big dogs, what I had to do to be prepared, I found a big parallel in working with my stakeholders.
Thank you, Jeananne. This presentation to me sounds so interesting. I can just imagine the parallels between the big dogs and your stakeholders. I assume you are not bringing any dogs in for demonstration purposes, right?
That will be to be determined. You'll have to come to the seminar and see what happens at that time.
Okay, that's great. Say that again, Jeananne, what did you say?
And I said, hey, I'm not above drama.
Okay, that's great. And I was just wondering, do you nickname any of your big dogs after your stakeholders?
I would prefer, in case this I know is being recorded, and if any of my stakeholders are around, let me say I do see some comparison, but I use them in a positive way.
I'm sure you do, Jeananne. Okay, this sounds like a great session. Thanks a lot for that overview of it. Next up, we have Carrie and Francis, who are going to tell us about Stakeholder, C.P.R, which is Crisis Project Rescue, how to manage stakeholder issues in troubled projects. Troubled projects is something that I have a lot of interest in because, we all like to see a project get turned around and saved, and we certainly have known projects that looked like they were on their last gasp of breath, and bringing those back from the state that they've gotten into is fascinating. Carrie and Francis, tell us a little bit about your background.
Hi, I'm Carrie Weeks, and I am a PMP project manager. I've been doing project management for about 15 years in various industries, including telecommunications, semiconductor, manufacturing, and I'm now in the healthcare nonprofit industry with the American Heart Association. Francis?
And I'm Francis Crosno. I am also a program and project manager at the American Heart Association. I've been here about a year. Part of that, I had a long career and retired from Texas Instruments. I've done project management probably over 30 years. I have managed cross-functional, cross-business projects. I've managed vendor evaluations, and I've managed international kinds of projects in both, financial area, manufacturing area. So I have quite of a broad range of experience. I'm also PMP certified.
And just like she said, with projects, we have found projects that have gone into what we consider maybe cardiac arrest, or maybe those projects have strokes, and we're trying to pull them back and put them back on track. So just like chest discomfort is a sign of a heart attack, or speech difficulty might be a sign of a stroke, projects too have warning signs as well that'll let us know that they're in trouble and they also need immediate assistance. This quick recognition of that problem and reaction can help reduce those side effects. For instance, if you notice someone suddenly isn't responding or their breathing isn't normal, they may actually be in cardiac arrest. And this event is reversible in most victims if it's treated within a few minutes. The American Heart Association supports implementing what they call a chain of survival to rescue people who suffer cardiac arrest. And in a similar way, a project manager needs a chain of survival to assess and rescue projects. So in our interactive session, we will examine a series of case studies that we've derived from interviews and input from various project managers with a cumulative of over 150 years of total project experience to derive what we call a key set of tenets or takeaways for stakeholder management. So in our session, we will walk through those scenarios and we'll examine what we're going to call a chain of survival and discuss project management tactics that we can use to reverse the negative effects and improve stakeholder management. The case studies are grouped into two different categories. The first category we'll look at is troubled projects that have serious stakeholder issues and how those were resolved. And then the second category we'll look at contains cases where stakeholders were used to rescue a troubled project. So when we think about that first category, stakeholder issues, and how they've been resolved, some of those things we'll look at are low level of stakeholder involvement, stakeholders mandating a use of strategic software, or sponsors with unspoken expectations, non-involvement of key stakeholders, and we'll even touch on how international teams not working together and not trusting each other can impact a project as well. And I'm sure all of you have probably experienced some form of that, where maybe you've had a sponsor that's come in and they've had scope or resources that maybe were misunderstood, or you've had unrealistic timetables. I'm sure none of you have ever experienced a project that you've ever picked up and you've had a schedule that just simply is unrealistic. In the second category, we're going to look at where stakeholders have actually played a role in trying to bring things back. So we'll look at cultural differences, unexpected vendor changes, some key functions maybe missing, or a low level of trust, or conflicting stakeholder agendas and communication styles, and then how those were overcome and the stakeholders were used to help bring those projects back up and resuscitated. So as you consider coming to our seminar, we'll be talking about some project skills that you can use to resuscitate those projects, and we'll also share with you some life-saving skills that you can use as well out in the real world. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's great. This is such an interesting topic because, you know, of course, as project managers, our job is to try to keep projects from getting into trouble. But a lot of times we come into a project that's already gotten itself into some kind of a hole, and tips for helping bring them out of that are wonderful things that we can all use. I like your concept, chain of survival, a project management chain of survival. That's a great parallel to the C.P.R. chain of survival, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. I also think it's very interesting, you referred to one of the stakeholder issues that can kill a project being the non-involvement, but you also talked about a situation where it sounds like the stakeholders almost had too much involvement or inappropriate involvement in terms of, demanding or picking a particular software solution that maybe was not always appropriate. So balancing the too little involvement with the too much involvement can be just as challenging as anything else on a project.
Yes, it can be. So we'll be taking an interactive look at those, and having in the session, we'll just break everybody out and take a peek at those and how we can work together, and what stages we can go through to work through those problems, and how we can help our stakeholders to be turned around, and how we can leverage their skills and what their abilities are to help the project to bring the project back to life and bring it back into a right standing.
Yeah, that's great. So did I understand you right that you're planning on doing a little bit of a breakout and a workshop as part of your session?
Yes, we will be. So we'll be letting everybody to giving examples of what those cases are, and we'll be talking through how to implement a chain of survival and what the appropriate chain of survival would be in that particular case, and how to work through that, and then how to implement that when they go back into the real world, and what are some of the real examples that they're facing today, and what are some of those chain of survival techniques that they can take with them. What are those key tenets? What are those key takeaways that they may be able to take back into their workplace the very next day to help maybe turn around some of their projects, and how they can help their stakeholders to become an asset to them rather than a hindrance on their projects.
That sounds excellent. Those sessions where people have some kind of participation or hands-on involvement, we always feel like we get so much out of those. So that's wonderful. I'm really looking forward to that. Thanks so much, Carrie and Francis. Okay, up next, I think Kevin and Jigger are going to talk about taking a humorous approach to some of the issues that they're going to be dealing with. Their topic is dealing with the carbon-based units that can ruin your pristine silicon-based systems. Kevin and Jigger, tell us a little bit about your background and your credentials.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. For those of you that haven't heard me speak before at prior symposiums, I really hope to meet you at our session. If you have heard me speak before, I'm really going to try harder this year to do better. So, again, I hope you'll... I'm committed to doing the symposiums till I finally get them right. But in an effort to do that, I brought somebody who's smarter than I am with me, and that's Jigger Shah, who you'll hear from in a minute. I worked with Jigger for the past couple of years. He's got a fabulous personal style. He's empathetic. He's knowledgeable. He is persuasive. From executives to the last contract end user that walked in the door, and worked extensively in banking and defense and telecom before selling out and becoming a consultant like me. So don't tell him, but he makes me look good.
Thanks, Kevin. Well, Kevin is the senior director at Alvarez and Marcel, and both my mentor and as an interim CIO at my current client, he's a demanding and overbearing stakeholder on my project. However, we do work together as a team. I do the work and he takes the credit. However, I could also listen to him for hours, and I'm sure you'll enjoy him speak for about 45 minutes or so in our presentation. In reality, he is the key why I'm here, and I'm also in consulting. As we were preparing for this presentation, we started evaluating the models of stakeholders and how we group them. and how we decompose them. The typical sponsors, end users, steering committees, things like that. Then we had an epiphany. We realized that stakeholders are not defined just by their roles. They're actually people, deluded, self-interested, biased, confused, and even at times illogical people.
So we decided to take a people approach instead of a roles-based approach, and we said, well, who really studies people? And we turned to the great philosophers. We started reading Descartes, Plato, Confucius, Aristotle, even Machiavelli, and oh my gosh, those guys are dry. So we gave up on that approach, and we switched modes, and we said, you know, who else is a real observer of human nature that we could learn from and stay awake while we're learning? And we turned to the great comedians, and we looked at Seinfeld and Carlin and Romano and Colbert and Whoopi and said, oh, we're on to something big. I mean, we can learn from these folks and look at stakeholders fundamentally differently because they do study and understand people. And it's kind of a fun way to look at stakeholders. So let's start with Steve Martin. Steve Martin once said, before you criticize a man, walk a mile in his shoes. And that way, when you do criticize him, you'll be a mile away and you'll already have his shoes. Well, kind of a clever way of looking at things, and we're not really into the shoe stealing part, but Steve raises a great point about understanding stakeholders through empathy and looking at it through their eyes.
And similarly, in words of Whoopi Goldberg, he said, normal is nothing more than a cycle on washing machine. The same is true for stakeholders. They are not so easily defined by simply their roles, and all end users are not the same either. They don't share the same motivations or preferences. So as Whoopi said, there is no normal. In our presentation, we'll pontificate endlessly about understanding the people aspect of those that are wearing the stakeholder hats and working with them effectively towards the common goal of project success. You'll get to hear about the archetypes, clowns, cowboys, ninjas, pirates, robots, and of course the zombies. We will also discuss the non-traditional approaches that define segmentation of stakeholders, the permanent versus rotational, the tenure versus experiences, incentives versus aspirations as they differ among stakeholders. And then we'll move on to talking about the dimensions that define the stakeholders, power versus position, influence versus authority, introverts versus extroverts, and many more.
For example, we're going to look at training approaches for deployment of a new IT system. And we're going to look at models that were inspired by Jay Leno, Dana Carvey, and George Carlin. Jay Leno said he went into a McDonald's and ordered some fries, and the girl at the counter said, you want some fries with that? Well, clearly she's a candidate for thorough training, but at least you know when she's been through it, she's going to do exactly what you told her. And then you move on to George Carlin, and George Carlin talks about going into a bookstore and asking for help finding the self-help section. And the clerk said, if I told you, it would defeat the purpose. And then finally, there's Dana Carvey, who was very proud of the fact that while he was only 30 years old, he read at a 34-year-old level. And the point of all this is that stakeholders in the exact same roles have fundamentally different needs in learning. Some need to be spoon-fed, some need to be shown how to learn, some want to just be left alone. And it's not a role-based analysis. There's more to it than that.
Now, did you know that 90% of the decisions we make are emotion-based? And so it's true for stakeholders. They are emotional beings, and emotions guide their decisions as well. So depending on the particular dysfunction of the stakeholders, we need to use different communication mechanisms to provoke desired outcomes or desired responses. And these responses could be gaining their buy-in, setting expectations with them, resolving conflict, or even guiding decisions. Consider this. To us, other people always seem irrational. Now, have you thought, though, how equally we might appear irrational to them? As Stephen Colbert says, keep your facts, I'm going with the truth. It is all about understanding our stakeholders' point of view, however irrational it might seem initially.
So we've had fun putting this topic together and finding some interesting quotes and looking at the comedians, but there is wisdom in it. And we hope you'll enjoy, or that you will join us and look at stakeholder management through a very non-traditional lens. Thanks.
Oh, thanks, Kevin and Jigger. I'm really looking forward to your session. I've seen Kevin speak several times at the symposium, and every opportunity that I get to, I will always go to Kevin's sessions. He's always entertaining, brilliant, and I usually am just taking notes furiously, trying to capture all the wisdom that comes out of his mouth. Kevin, how many of the UTD symposiums have you actually spoken at?
This will be my fourth.
Fourth, wow.
And thanks for the kind words.
Well, yeah, you deserve it. Your sessions are absolutely excellent, and I'm looking forward to this one too. And Jigger, is this your first one to speak at?
That is true. First one at UTD.
All right. Well, welcome aboard. We're looking forward to this.
I have to say, I heard your questions to Jeananne and whether or not she's bringing any big dogs.
Yes.
I've got calls into Seinfeld, some of the others, but I don't think they're coming.
Okay, we won't be holding our breath for Seinfeld on this one then, but hopefully you all will be able to shore up the comedian side. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Okay, next up, Suzanne Hansen is going to talk about identifying... Wow. I hope I'm the only one that heard that. Identifying stakeholders at the speed of light. Suzanne, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Suzanne, give us a little bit about your background and your credentials, and then tell us about your session.
Sure. Basically, just to let you know, everyone, my name is Suzanne Hansen, and I'm excited to talk to you about my upcoming session at the UTD Symposium. I hope you join me in learning how to identify and manage stakeholders in a global sales pursuit, and then to see what happens after that deal's won.
Suzanne, I'm going to stop you for just a second here. Would you try to get a little bit closer to your microphone? We're getting a little bit of fading on you.
I'm sorry about that. I'll try to get closer. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, that is better now, Suzanne.
Thank you. My background is basically currently I'm the Vice President of Marketing for the PMI Dallas chapter. I've also worked for Fortune 50 companies like IBM, EDS, now HP, Dell, and Verizon. I've served in project, program, portfolio, and product management roles where I actually led and supported multi-million-dollar contracts as part of global cross-functional teams. Currently, I'm also a professor teaching management. I have an MBA and a PMP. So with my background, basically what I tried to do was to share with you guys basically some interesting kind of things I've learned over the years. This is really a case study about combining best tactics I learned through many sales pursuits. The best way to start basically trying to win those pursuits through the management of your stakeholders and managing and at the same time concurrently managing a complex, agile portfolio. So what this is really about is sort of like a real-world experience. So what I'm trying to do here is focus on lots of practical hints, ways that are really tried and proven and real-world oriented, so that somehow we can walk away and see what it feels like to actually be a part of those teams that win. So it's actually, to me, very exciting and exhilarating to be in that situation. So I hope you'll enjoy the ride. So it's always fast-moving winning those deals. It's kind of like skiing down the slopes and steering things in the right direction to avoid a fall. And basically, as we know as project managers, we're always trying to ski and maneuver that every day, right? So we'll talk about how to organize plans for executive sponsors, forming a steering committee, kind of like governance teams that we would work with basically daily sometimes, and discuss stakeholder key dependencies and more. And in a way, this is sort of like a real-world current kind of situation where we actually did do a cloud computing type solution. And that's really kind of like the next high technology buzzword that's out there that's piqued a lot of people's interest. And it basically has many benefits to offer customers. So there's lots of ways to entice or have your stakeholders get interested in solutions, and as well as being able to deliver those solutions. And really don't forget about those naysayers or those derailers you have to maneuver around. And so what I've also tried to incorporate is look for practical ways to resolve conflict for a win-win approach. Some of the other things I wanted to go over is basically some practical ways to focus on the business case, benefits realization, and the hidden cost of integration that you'll find a lot of times in these major deals. And so as a project manager and a program manager, and looking at it from different angles and perspectives here, you're really trying to balance cost, schedule, quality trade-offs to make all the difference in ensuring a contract has even a chance of meeting customer expectations. And so I'll add basically some few agile tips and tricks that I've learned. And we'll talk about how to gather stakeholder requirements by looking at a sample way to do it from the eyes of a sales pursuit and delivery team. It's a journey to see how to develop a practical roadmap that actually integrates best practices standards so that really from a project management perspective, we're actually delivering something that's very competitive. It actually makes work more fun, more interesting, and actually a more efficient way for a customer to do his business. So come join me for a fun session, Living on the Edge to Win a Sales Pursuit. And we'll look at immediate next steps to start a contract stakeholder plan for delivery team success. I hope you guys join me.
That's great, Suzanne. There are so many people interested in Agile as a topic, and I think that your topic about your case study that involves managing a complex Agile portfolio is going to be of interest to a lot of people. Suzanne, I'm going to ask you a question that's a little bit different. Is this your first time presenting at the UTD Symposium?
It sure is.
Great. And Suzanne, would you tell us, because there may be people in the audience today who might be interested in considering presenting at a future symposium, what made you decide to present a paper, and how was the process for you in
Well, basically, you're cutting out a little bit, Susan, I guess. I'm not sure why, but I guess to answer your question, what kind of interest or piqued me into this area? Honestly, I've actually been a part of the symposium for several years. I've gone off and on over the years to listen to the different speakers, and I know you mentioned how good they were, and I actually have also been extremely impressed by the quality and caliber of the people there. And, after so many years of listening and kind of absorbing, I thought, gee, I'd like to give back. I'd like to share maybe some things that I've learned over the years and hopefully make a difference in other people's lives to actually help make the project management profession a better one. So that was really my major reason for wanting to join.
That's very nice to hear, Suzanne. Thank you so much. And I agree. Giving back to the profession and sharing something unique that you've learned along the way is a wonderful thing for consider doing. Let's move on to our next speaker. Dan, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself. Thank you. Okay, next up, the topic is the elephant in the executive room. This one is fascinating to me because I've also noticed that often executives don't seem to have the level of understanding of project management that we wish they did. And I've heard this repeated several times at project management symposiums. It's a common issue for people to deal with. And so I am really excited that we've got a session that's actually going to address this issue. Daryl, are you there?
Yes, I am, Susan. Thank you.
Okay, great. Daryl, give us a little bit about your background. Tell us a little about yourself, and then give us a sneak preview on your topic.
Okay, by way of quick background, my co-author Dennis and I, as a team, have over 90 years of combined experience in the field of project management. Dennis is PMP number 81. I am PMI member number 3662, one of the early ones, and I'm also a registered professional engineer. We want to thank UT Dallas for the opportunity to present from a business and executive viewpoint some of our research-based ideas on project management. And these will be from the corporate or executive level view of handling project management. A few points that we will cover are the need to understand that a stakeholder's role and the associated responsibilities are related to the person's functional position, such as a director on the board, senior executive, or a functional line executive. Any view of a stakeholder is further colored by the distinctions between the concepts of governing and managing, by the amount of resources and fund the stakeholder controls, and by how stovepipe the organizational structure is. Therefore, we'll discuss that the stakeholders within an enterprise are really not created equal. Complicating matters in considering project management here is that many executives currently do not understand what project management is, what a project management office does, or what project management and project management offices, when used together, can do for the enterprise. Therefore, executives need to take the time to become conversant on an executive level with the major elements and facets of project management, and many executives do not have that understanding. This requires that the executive obtain that information which is necessary for them to gain that needed understanding of project management. Actual understanding by the executives of what project management is and also what it's not will lead to making the functional, organizational, and political changes that are necessary to implement cost-effective project management. Establishing functional PMOs that bring value and benefit to the enterprise itself, and promoting cross-functional coordination and cooperation to benefit the actual enterprise itself. Now, we'll also look at various organizational structure, processes, and managerial changes that are espoused by many management consultants and academics to integrate project management into the day-to-day operation of an enterprise. However, when you look at this, initiating and making significant changes is not something that's easy to do. Therefore, well-developed plans must be prepared to make this change and how stakeholders are used at the executive level within project management. And those plans must be understood and supported by those directors and senior executives with the organizational power to deal with the elephant in the room. Unless controlled and directed changes are made in the functioning of the enterprise with regard to project management, the elephant in the executive suite will continue to be an issue. But making the needed changes will definitely result in more profits for the company and future business opportunities. So what we're doing in the paper and the presentation is we're really looking at project management and the varied range of the project management sub-disciplines and knowledge areas, and how they have to be considered by the executive within the corporation if project management is really going to be included as an integrated functional operation within any enterprise. And I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to present this because it's something I've talked with executives about over many decades now. Thank you.
Yeah, Daryl, I agree. I've noticed this too, that our executives it's not that they don't want to understand. It's just that they're very busy people many times, and it's hard to get their focus to get the information to them that they most need to know about project management and how it can be have such a huge impact on business success. So, have you had success in? Have you had success in getting this communicated to some top executives?
Yes, I have during my career been successful in doing that. I have also watched where the executive power and people who didn't feel it was in their best, if you want to say, personal interest to implement project management, have been able to stymie and kill off project management as even being implemented in a significant way, and also in quashing project management offices that had been established as soon as they had completed what they were initially set up for, to make sure they didn't have a chance to survive to gain power within the enterprise. So we'll be looking at all those aspects as we go along.
That's excellent, because case studies and looking at what went wrong is often just as important as looking at how to do it right. So your tips and information there, I think, is going to be of benefit to a lot of people. Executives are certainly major stakeholders in any of our projects.
Yes, and to me, they've been the least discussed within the literature, that we're normally dealing with in the area of project management. So we thought it was time that the executive stakeholders got highlighted and got their due.
Yeah, absolutely. And although we're talking about them in this session, do you think that this is a good type of a symposium to bring your executives to help get them better introduced to project management?
This would be exactly the type of symposium to bring executives to, because getting very, very focused information on a broad range of topics in project management.
Right.
And they're getting quickly and condensed, which is really an effective use of their time. And when I sit with very senior executives, you have between 3 and 10 minutes with them. That's your allotted time.
Yeah.
So you really need to be able to get your information across. And when you can bring them out and get them to spend a few hours taking condensed, focused information in, it's to their benefit and the benefit of their companies.
Yeah, I agree completely, Daryl. Okay, that's great. Looking forward to it, and can't wait to hear your session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan.
And next up, Carly is going to talk about finding stakeholder value, eating your cake because you don't get to keep it. Carly, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly. Carly, tell us a little bit about your background, your credentials, and then give us a sneak on preview of your topic.
Okay. I am a PMP and an MBA. I've taught project management in a master's degree program at a university in the East Coast. I've worked in transportation, software development. I am also a certified Scrum professional. So I've got a variety of different approaches that I've used over the years between traditional project management and agile project management. And I have found that having all of those tools in your tool belt is the way to get through a project or a very complex program. So what I'm offering is an examination of a case study from the transportation industry. This was a program that I was running. We had a situation where the technology was getting a little bit ahead of our project, our program actually. We had started studying the problem and deciding what we were going to do about it, and that took us about 1.5 years. We launched the program. It took us another 1.5 years to get the first phase installed, and we were in phase 2. It's now been 2.5, almost 3 years since we first assessed the scope that we wanted to cover. And one of my sponsors came to me and said, you know, the technology has changed since we first looked at this thing. And what are you going to say? Of course it has. It's been 3 years, and it's in a bleeding edge technology. We were working in voice recognition. We'd picked one of the leaders in the industry because they're more innovative than anybody. So of course they'd invented new stuff in 3 years. So the question you have at that point is, what does this do to the careful planning that you've put into your program here? And how do you take advantage of changing technology or any kind of change that might affect your scope when you're in a very long program? So what I have looked at in here is some of the tools that we used that were agile, some of them that were traditional. But the big question is, do you throw the whole thing out, or do you actually consider the fact that if you don't respond to the changes that have happened in the technology in the last 3 years, how valuable is the product that you're going to deliver? So what we had to do in this particular instance was we had to create some space where we could actually ask that question of ourselves. So that was the first major hurdle that we had to get through, is that we had to look at how much change can we allow without threatening the success of the things that are going well. And then the next question is, okay, if we're going to allow some change, how much change can we allow? How do we assess what's available to us? Because one of the things that I have noticed over years and years of doing this stuff is that the number one thing that's hard to do is prioritize what comes next and making choices about which things you're going to do and which things you're not going to do. And it's so hard that a lot of projects don't actually make the good choices. They don't choose not to do stuff. Things come in and you blow the whole thing up. It's absolutely the number one slippery slope, but you can't say, no, that doesn't matter, and no, that we should not try to take advantage of better technology. So how do you do it? How do you take advantage of the changes that have occurred? How do you get the best possible product out the door? How do you get the strongest business solution for your stakeholders? Because in the end, we are judged not only by on time and on budget, though that's by far the easiest criterion we can use for measuring the success of a project. The biggest thing is, are you delivering the business value that these guys asked you for in the first place? Are they going to get the business return that they invested for? And so if you're going to ask, what should we really deliver, you have to ask yourself, how does this measure against the business value that our partners are looking for? So we went through a process of doing that and learned a lot about which dimensions we needed to measure against, how to measure against them quickly, how to make choices, and in the end, we had a really good assessment that allowed everyone to feel comfortable that we were delivering the very best possible product that we could inside the constraints of our budget and our original time frame. So the good news is that it was a successful thing, and our stakeholders were delighted when we were done. And I can show you a little bit about how to do that, because again, the thing that I've noticed that's hardest to do in project management, or in program management especially, is choosing. What are you going to do and what are you going to not do? So that's about it.
Carly, that is excellent. It sounds like you're addressing several topics that are just going to be of such interest to our audience. Like you, I also worked on a project that, that the business spent millions of dollars on, multi-years, and about the time we finished the project, the brand new technology was out there, and we had to go in and look at, should we scrap everything and start over again with the new technology? These are not easy decisions to make. They are very challenging for stakeholders and for the project team that's involved in this. So I'm really fascinated and interested in how you all ended up coming to a successful conclusion, because obviously you referred to having a happy outcome.
Yep. Yeah, it was actually a lot of hours sitting in rooms together talking to each other. So I'll tell you all about what we did and how we made the choices. It's choosing is so hard. It's absolutely one of the biggest challenges there is in project management.
Yeah, it certainly is. And also, I like your approach of using a hybrid of some agile planned stuff and some standard waterfall project management approaches. That's very interesting, and I think that's going to resonate with a lot of our audience who do similar things.
Okay, good.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Carly.
You betcha.
Next up, thanks. Next up, we have Jason, who's going to be talking with us about, his topic is I'm Not Difficult, How to Handle Challenging Stakeholders. And oh my goodness, if we haven't all had a certain share of these challenging stakeholders, I know that I certainly have, and any tips for how to deal with these are going to be helpful to us all. Jason, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I think I've resolved my audio issues, so we ought to be good to go.
Okay, that's great. You're actually just a little bit on the loud side. You might just back off slightly from your speaker, your mic, I mean.
All right, I'll tone it down a little bit. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better already. Jason, tell us a little bit about your background and your credentials, and then give us a glimpse into your session.
Absolutely. So I'm a little bit of an odd duck here because I'm one of the few presenters here who's not a PMP. My name's Jason Benfield. I work for a professional services organization called C-Level. We're based out of Austin, but I'm opening a branch of our organization up here in Dallas. We primarily focus in the business architecture / product management, business analyst space for projects. So we're heavily involved with the IABA and usually speak at their events. In fact, we're involved with helping them rewrite the BA box, so their business of knowledge over on that side. But there's a significant amount of overlap between what we do and the product management space, specifically with dealing with challenging stakeholders. I'm sure we've all been in projects and experienced difficult stakeholders, whether it's a political issue or if you have some folks who are a little more experienced or have a high role within an organization and are throwing their weight around a little bit. They might have really strong opinions. Or my favorite type of stakeholder deal with is the passive-aggressive stakeholder, which can be quite a challenge. With most of you, if you have to deal with challenging stakeholders and don't deal with it appropriately, it can impact your relationship with that person in an organization and perhaps limit your upward mobility within that organization for your future chances at promotion and advancement. For us as a services organization, we just get fired if we don't handle stakeholders correctly. So over the course of this talk, we're gonna talk about several things. One is there's a book out there called Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, and they promote a concept called commitment and consistency that we believe in. And so we're going to talk about that for a little bit and how that applies to what we do and how we can leverage that knowledge to be able to handle challenging stakeholders. There's a fantastic negotiation book out there called Getting to Yes, which speaks a lot about a concept of positions versus interests. So we're going to cover that and how we can leverage that to be able to handle stakeholders. After we go over some of those basic core concepts, we're just going to talk about strategies on dealing with different types of difficult stakeholders to ensure the best outcomes, how to identify the different types of stakeholders, and specific techniques on handling different types of difficult stakeholders. For me personally, the most challenging for me is the passive-aggressive stakeholder, just because you have to have a lot of EQ, a high emotional quotient, to be able to really read that someone's being passive-aggressive. So that can be a bit of a challenge. So we're going to run through that, share some more stories. I'll share some experiences that I've had through my years in the industry, and at the end we'll have a fun little question and answer session and swap some stories and see what we can take out of it.
Oh, that's excellent, Jason. Jason is part of the Professional Business Analyst Organization. Last year was the first year that the UTD PM Symposium included a track with some business analyst presentations, and that's part of why I wanted to include Jason in today's quick overview. It's something the business analysis world is very closely tied to the project management world, and they certainly deal with stakeholders every bit as much as project managers do. So we're really looking forward to hearing something from the business analyst perspective about this, and it looks like you've had your experience with the full gamut of difficult stakeholders and your tips and tricks for how to deal with them and how to pull down the level of excitement, if you will, sometimes, I think will be very helpful. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Jason. Okay, the last two sessions I'm going to give you an overview of very quickly. These are sessions that I looked at. I thought they would be of particular interest. The first one is on introducing project management to a small company. And in this one, Reba Leonard is going to be talking about introducing project management to entrepreneurs or small companies that are growing very quickly. She's going to take a look at a case study of a small company that just had fabulous success, and kind of before they knew it, they were up to 40 million in sales. But their lack of ability to deal with projects and to successfully manage projects as a business was contributing to some real growing pains that they were having. And so Reba is going to talk about how project management kind of came in and rescued the company from self-destruction, and some of the challenges and successes that they had, especially talking about how to deal with introducing project management to entrepreneur types who are kind of by definition looking to work outside of structure and outside of the box, and getting their buy-in and helping communicate and getting them to understand what's going on with project management and why it is so necessary to their success. This one should be an excellent session. In addition to this one, there's one on engaging stakeholders in agile projects. Both Kamalesh and Ritu, who are presenting on this topic, are agile certified practitioners. They have their ACP designations. Kamalesh actually just sent me a note last week that he had just received his credential. He's been working in this field for many years and has been a speaker several times on the agile topic. And they're going to be talking about identifying stakeholders and mapping their expectations, keeping them informed, and engaging stakeholders in decision making, and also about how to introduce these agile concepts to stakeholders who may be used to the traditional mindset, the traditional waterfall project management methodology. So agile, again, being a very hot topic in the project management community. This one is one that I'm sure a lot of people will get quite a bit out of. We also have 4 keynote speakers who are going to be coming in. These are very high-level, distinguished speakers who have topics that are of broad global interest. We have the Texas Department of Transportation, John Barton, representing that group, coming and talking to us about their projects. We've got the VP for Education from the other project management association, the International Project Management Association, who's going to be talking about global and cultural impacts on stakeholder engagement. We have C.J. Walker-Waite, who's the director of PMI. He's going to be talking about demonstrating the value of project management, and Walter Jones from Parkland Hospital, and Laurel Taylor, who will be talking about the new Parkland Hospital IT implementation project. So those topics are really going to be of interest to the whole group, and I'm looking forward to that. The keynote speakers at this event are always so fascinating. A quick word about the 3 groups who sponsor this event. UT Dallas has a project management program in their executive education organization, and it offers a certificate in project management and an MS degree with an emphasis in project management. This program was developed back in 1997. It was one of the first that was accredited by the Project Management Institute. They're, of course, a registered Project Management Institute, registered education provider. It's a world-class facility, and I can speak from working directly with the people at UTD over the last few years. This is a dedicated group of individuals who are very focused on project management. It's an excellent organization, an excellent program to go through if you're looking at building your credentials further. Also, of course, the PMI Dallas chapter, I'm representing that today as the Vice President of the Professional Development Organization. Our mission is to support the growth and development of project management practitioners, and that is exactly in alignment with this event. This event will absolutely support individuals' growth and development by expanding your awareness and understanding of project management concepts and spending 2 days just focused on project management and the latest thinking by some truly brilliant people who are presenting at this. The third sponsor is PM World Journal. This is an online publication with over 40,000 readers worldwide. Look at the link there. Go check them out. They have some excellent articles that are published each month. And David Pells, who is a PMI fellow, is absolutely brilliant in terms of the project management world. Another great sponsor, and we're delighted. David Pells has actually been part of this event and co-sponsoring it since the very first UTD PM Symposium. He actually recruited me to speak at the first one, so I know he's been there all along and has been a strong proponent of continuing to improve and increase this event. The early registration is still open for this right now up through July 15th. The event's being held at UTD. There's a link available through the PMI Dallas chapter at our calendar site, or you can Google PM Symposium UTD and make your way to the UTD site for registration. There's also a special for groups, so if you have a group from your company that's coming, make sure that you get in contact with UTD to get a group registration discount of 5 to 15%. The registration link is posted here. If there are any questions, I can take one. I see I'm already 1 minute over time, but I think if anyone has questions, let me go ahead and give you my email address. You can send those directly to me, and I'll be glad to answer anything about the event. I am at, and let me see if I can type this in the Q&A section. No. My PMI Dallas chapter email is profdev, PROFDEV, at PMIDallas.org. With that, Madison, do you have any closing words for us? I know that you've recorded this event and it will be posted shortly.
The event, and this will be passed over to. I'll send you the link as soon as it's ready.
Okay, great. Everyone, thank you so much for your participation and attending this event. We look forward to seeing you at the symposium in August. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.